Ha. Okay, give us just a minute while we go. I'll check YouTube. I have YouTube up. You are live, Andy.
Welcome, Chair and Commissioners. Chair Purnell, we are ready to proceed when you are.
Great, thank you everybody. Today is May 5th, 2022, National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. And it is also the Mendocino County Planning Commission meeting. I would like to call this meeting to order at 9:01. The Mendocino County Planning Commission meetings will be conducted virtually and not available for in-person public participation pursuant to the provisions of Government Code Section 54953 and the recommendation of the Mendocino County Health Officer. Meetings are live streamed and available for viewing at the Mendocino County YouTube page at www.youtube.com/Mendocino County Video. In order to minimize the risk of exposure during this time of emergency, the public may participate digitally in meetings by sending comments to pbscommissions@mendocinocounty.org or orally via telecomment in lieu of personal attendance. All public comment will be made available to the commissioner's staff and the general public after processing by staff and can be viewed as attachments to this meeting agenda on the Planning Commission agenda page. Finally, to submit public comments via telecomment, the Zoom link and associated instructions can be found on the agenda for this meeting. In order to ensure that you are called upon to provide comment, please complete the telecomment form found at www.mendocinocounty.org/government/planning-building-services/meetings-agendas. And with that, I invite the clerk to conduct roll call.
Thank you. Commissioner Wiedemann?
Here.
Commissioner Pollan?
Here.
Commissioner Jones?
Present.
Commissioner Babini?
Here.
Chair Purnell?
Here. Okay, and I wanted to note that there was a request from Commissioner Wiedemann to reorder today's agenda so that we move matters from staff and matters from the commission, which are items 7 and 8, toward the front of the agenda, and I'm happy to oblige. Commissioner Wiedemann, I just wanted to check with you to see if we can move those after agenda item 4, matters from the public. Will that work with your time frame today? I think you're still on mute.
I have to leave by 10:30, so I'm not sure.
Okay, so why don't we just like bump those right up to right after number 2?
Great.
Okay, thank you. And so agenda item 2, which is discussion and possible action, including the adoption of the resolution of the Mendocino County Planning Commission, finding that state or local officials continue to recommend measures to promote social distancing in connection with public meetings. Would any commissioner like to make a motion on this?
So moved.
Second.
All good.
We have a first and a second.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, through the chair, if we could go to public comment for this item as well.
Public comment for agenda item 2?
Correct.
Okay. Do we have, let's open public comment for this item. Do we have any public wishing to comment on this item?
Anyone in the attendee room, can you please raise your hand if you wish to speak on this item under 2, discussion of the resolution for public comment? I don't see any raised hands, Chair Purnell, for this particular item. You do have a request for public comment after the resolution.
Okay, thank you for that. So we have a first and a second. And I believe we are ready. Well, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for a vote.
Commissioner Wiedemann,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Pollan,
Yes.
Commissioner Babini,
Yes.
Chair Purnell.
Yes. Okay, and do we also have a determination of legal notice?
Legal notice has been provided.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, and at the request of Commissioner Wiedemann, we are now going to move agenda items 7 and 8 to this point in the agenda. And so now we are going on to matters from staff. Are there any matters from staff?
Sam Vandewater, Senior Planner. We do have 2 items under matters from staff. We have first the reappointment of Commissioner Wiedemann to the Airport Land Use Commission.
And on this, we would be looking for a motion and a second from the commission and a vote on that.
Great, and Commissioner Wiedemann, just checking with you that you are wishing to serve again.
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you for your service.
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to reappoint Commissioner Wiedemann to the Airport Land Use Commission.
I'm happy to second that.
All right. Commissioner Pollan,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiedemann,
Yes.
Commissioner Babini,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Chair Purnell.
Yes,
Motion carries unanimously.
wonderful. Thank you again, Commissioner Wiedemann. And it looks like we also have a 7B, which is appointment of one additional planning commissioner to the Airport Land Use Commission. Yes, Commissioner Babini.
So I know we had discussed in the last meeting that you and I were at, Allison, which I think was towards the beginning of April, that I was interested in taking the second seat. And so I didn't know if there was anybody else that was also interested, but I am still interested in taking the second seat on the Land Use Commission.
Great. We've got one interested party. Do we have a second?
I move to second Commissioner Babini to be the second airport commissioner.
Okay, great. And I was asking about the second for purposes of whether or not we have to arm wrestle for this position. Okay, it looks like there won't be an arm wrestling match. And so Commissioner Wiedemann, would you like to make the motion?
I'll
then?
make a motion. I make a motion to add Commissioner Babini to the Airport Land Use Commission.
And do we have a second?
Second that motion.
Great.
All right. Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Babini,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiedemann,
Yes.
Commissioner Pollan,
Yes.
Chair Purnell.
Yes.
Thank
And
Motion
thank
carries.
you, Commissioner Babini, for serving.
Yes.
And Senior Planner Vandewater just wanted to let our Commissioner Babini know that there may be an application required with the clerk of the board, but we'll look into that for you and get you the application if necessary.
And I believe the
Mandy.
same may be for Commissioner Wiedemann
okay.
as well, yes.
Okay, with
Deputy-
that,
Just
Yep.
to clarify, Deputy County Councilman, and I apologize. I believe it's the board who does the formal appointments. We do this, the planning commission, to see who of the commissioners would like to serve. But I think the board makes the final appointment.
thank you for that clarification. And Vandy, were there any other matters from staff?
No, not at this time, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to agenda item 8, matters from the commission. Agenda item 8A is discussion and possible action regarding a presentation by the Planning Commission Ad Hoc Committee on short-term rentals, including possible direction to staff. And so with this, I would like to turn it over to our ad hoc members to make a presentation on this draft resolution.
Okay, so I guess I'll start since it was Diana's and my brainchild. So I did ask, or the secretary of the commission did send out a draft resolution. And I'm going to assume you all read it. And maybe what I'll do is just hit the high points. And then the thought was we could have some discussion if there are any outstanding questions you want answered before taking action. Diana and I could do whatever research you need before our next meeting, and then we could take action hopefully at the next meeting. So what we're looking to do is provide a new interpretation of an existing section of the code. So we're not legislating here, we're not creating new code because that's out of the purview of the Planning Commission. All we can do is provide interpretation and set a new precedent for county staff in terms of how they review and consider vacation rentals. I did ask Julia for all of the background documentation, and there is quite a big stack of it that I looked through in order to prepare this resolution. And I wanted to start off with sort of a big picture issue as to why this is focused on the inland zoning ordinance and not the coastal ordinance. So I wanted to start with that because that might be a source of confusion. So obviously we have two different ordinances. And the coastal zoning ordinance, which is adopted by the Coastal Commission through what's called a local coastal program amendment, already includes a provision that allows for vacation rentals. So there's really no opportunity for the Planning Commission to provide a different interpretation than that. It's pretty clear what's meant by that. And that's already gone through a process with the Board of Supervisors and the Coastal Commission. So in order to change it in the coastal zone, we would actually have to do an LCP amendment and address that, maybe working with our individual supervisors to address that in the coastal zone. So this is really geared just to the inland zoning district. And the reason there's some squishiness with regard to how, if I can use that term, I know it's not exactly scientific, but it's what I feel related to how vacation rentals have been improved in the inland zone is because, and I'm just going to read the actual regulation. So residential and agricultural use types, room and board, is the way that vacation rentals are approved in the inland zoning district. And those are defined as the renting of not more than 2 rooms for occupancy by transient guests for compensation or profit, provided the parcel has frontage on a publicly maintained road. A major use permit is required if the parcel does not have frontage on a publicly maintained road. So this raises 2 issues, I think, for many people in the community. One is vacation rental. Does a house with 2 rooms, is that the same thing as 2 rooms? And I would argue it's not the same in intent or actual in the way it's implemented in the county. The other issue is whether or not vacation rentals are insubordinate and subordinate and incidental, not insubordinate, subordinate and incidental to the primary residential use if the only use on the property is a vacation rental. So that's the other issue that I think we need to grapple with. So what are the consequences of the way the policy has been sort of interpreted over time? I think has changed a lot. When this interpretation was initiated, it was, the late 90s. There was no VRBO, there was no Airbnb. And I think since that time, the proliferation of these internet-based ways of marketing your property as a vacation rental has literally resulted in out-of-town people, out-of-county people purchasing properties for the sole purpose of renting them as vacation rentals. And there are some out-of-county people that have bought multiple properties to rent as vacation rentals. And so my argument is that this is beginning to look a lot like visitor serving accommodations and basically a dispersed hotel rather than room and board, which is actually what's permitted by our ordinance. And so what I'm looking for is for the Planning Commission to reinterpret this section of the code. And in the draft ordinance that I pulled together, I do note that right now, 3% of the county housing stock has converted into legal vacation rentals. And I want to emphasize one thing: a healthy housing market typically has around a 4% vacancy rate. Mendocino County has less than a 1% vacancy rate. What that means essentially is that people who want to move out of their parents' house and get a place to live can't. It means that people who want to move here for a job can't find one. It means people that are evicted from their house because their house has sold can't find a new place to live. I operate a hotel, and right now I have 2 rooms that are rented by people on a permanent basis because they can't find any place else to live. That is very sad. This is a crisis, I think, in our community, and this is one small thing that our planning commission can do to address it. So that is discussed in the ordinance. Basically, what the ordinance would do is that it would revert to the actual language in this room and board. In other words, you could rent out a room in your house through this, but you could not rent out a house. And it would also make existing vacation rentals that are operated through previous use in this regard. So in other words, vacation rentals that were authorized through previous interpretation of this regulation expire when the property is sold. So when the property is sold, they would lose the business license to operate that vacation rental. So that's the sum total of what I would hope to achieve. And I'm sorry, Diana, it's both of us. I've just been saying it's like me, and that's not really fair. So let's let Diana weigh in a bit too. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. I think I sent out I hope you got it in your package. If not, it's on the web from Elizabeth Swenson, who is part of the organization of what we call it HAT, and the housing, looking for how to resolve the housing crisis. And if you haven't looked at it, get a chance to read it. It's now been posted, I believe, this morning. But why the crisis is so apparent. I mean, and you know, our fellow staff who sets up our meetings for the planning commission, I mean, the planning department is having a hard time finding staff. The environmental health department is having a hard time finding staff. And part of that really is lack of housing and affordable housing to meet wages that are offered by this county. And one of the drawbacks of vacation rentals are people make I want to say, a lot more money in renting a vacational rental than they would a long-term rent. And therefore, there's a big incentive for it. I think the other thing, besides vacation, besides the VRBOs and Airbnb, there's also now, you know, as Commissioner Jones pointed out, organized developers buying up housing stock, especially when it's cheap, remodeling them and putting them on the market as vacation rentals, and that's a problem. We also have businesses who are reaching out to property owners, sending flyers out to offer vacation rentals, and I think we've reached a tipping point, and I think it was clear, like if people already have a permitted vacation rental, we're going to grandfather those folks in. We can't. That's the probably honorable thing to do. Their incomes, a lot of them are dependent on this. But when that property changes hands, as Commissioner Jones says, then they would that particular permit that they have would no longer be allowed, and they would have to come back through this new, which would be a new ordinance, so to speak, on how to get a permit for a vacation rental and meet all the new standards. I think the other biggest complaint in my research, and I went to several counties, talked to people, got data, how every county's trying to deal with this, especially right now, was a lot of the complaints were when people have vacation rental and there's not a long-term, the person who owns the property doesn't live there. There's nobody to do the real check and balance. And that puts neighbors in jeopardy, make them uncomfortable. And that was a common thread in almost every county when I got into reading the data. That was common. And we experienced that as a commission probably a few months ago on the vacation rental that was off Albion Ridge. The neighborhood property owners were very much concerned about transient energy and transient habitat. So I think you could read this. We know that, ultimately it goes to, we're going to have to send it to the Board of Soups, but I'm happy that we have something to present for furthering this discussion and coming up with some kind of resolution.
So I just want to clarify one thing, Diana, is that
Sure.
This ordinance would not go forward to the Board of Soups. This is an action that the Planning Commission can take on its own. I think
right.
where we would need to work with the Board of Soups is on the coastal land use and development code around vacation rentals there. And I have already started working and reaching out to both Dan Jurdy and Ted Williams. And I understand that there's some controversy around this recommendation because people do make money by renting out a second home on their property. So I'd just be really interested to hear what the rest of the commission feel and where your thoughts are on this.
Well, thank you, Commissioners Wiedemann and Jones, for all of the work that you've put into this and for bringing us a draft resolution as an excellent starting point for discussion. And with that, I would like to open it up to the rest of the commission for discussion and questions. Commissioner Babini.
Sure. So I am a proponent for, affordable housing, especially as somebody who grew up in this community, left for my education and was able to come back, and I have the opportunity to raise my family here. It's, I love living in Mendocino County. My family's here. It's kind of been this amazing experience for us to come home. We definitely struggled with, once we were able to get jobs here, my husband and I, in getting housing. And so we were commuting even from Sonoma County here for a while until we were able to find housing. Fortunately, we were able to find a more long-term rental, but I know that's not the case for everyone. I know quite a few people who've applied to even county jobs specifically who have to make that determination on whether the commute is workable for them, especially with the wages here compared to living in a different county. I think it's a great place to start. I definitely want to look at some of the requirements for what would be allowable. I know I saw the incidental use for the property having a caretaker or a person live on site. I think just addressing what that means in, like you were stating, with the second homes on people's properties, ADUs, guest houses, what that means. We do have a lot of medical care workers. I know I utilized the residency program here for all of our family medicine, and a lot of those folks do look for more short-term rentals. And so kind of just seeing what the good balance would be and what moving forward those people would have the ability to still have access to those shorter term rentals as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Pollan.
And echo Commissioner Babini's sentiments, and also thank you to Commissioner Wiedemann and Commissioner Jones for all your work on this. I feel like it's an important step. I also feel like it's a little bit of a stopgap. I feel a little bit concerned about some inconsistency in the meantime between how the inland and the coastal zones are would be treated with this interpretation in place. Again, it's a delicate balance, but we want to be able to encourage affordable housing for people that live here, and also, we are a highly tourist-based economy here in Mendocino County, and being able to house transients as well has been a boon for many individuals that might not otherwise be able to participate in that economy without those internet-based solutions. So I don't have any, I'm prepared to support this resolution today. And I also would just hope that it's just the beginning of the conversation and not the end. And again, I know we are not the body that is going to ultimately determine that, but hopefully we can be in conversation with the Board of Supervisors around drafting something that's countywide, that strikes that balance in a good way.
Thanks, Cliff.
Thank you. So I have some comments and some questions too. Overall, I really like the direction that this is going, and I've sort of put my critical thinking cap on to say, is it possible that this might set precedent for our upcoming zoning ordinance update? And do we need to think about the relationship of this resolution to a future ordinance? So I'm thinking about precedent and how this is going to interface with the decisions that we make moving into the future. So I think we probably have some work to tease that out, and we might also need to talk with staff and maybe even hear from the consultants about that. So that's why I'm not prepared to make a decision on it today. But just a couple of things. I saw in the resolution that findings section 1A, that the Planning Commission finds the above recitals are true and correct. And I have no doubt that the whereases are totally correct, but I would like to see a citation for the over 3% of housing stock being converted. Since that's a hard number, it would be nice to know where that came from. Again, no reason to doubt that number. I think a citation would be great.
Allison, if you want me to tell you where that comes from, it comes from comparing the number of business permits that have actually been authorized by the county with the total number of housing units in the county.
Okay, thank you. And do we probably don't have a sense how many of those units are complete conversions versus 1 or 2 rooms in a house, correct?
That has not been done. I could do an overlay with the map between like the coastal zone and the inland zone, so we would know how much is inland versus coastal, because I haven't done that. But the map is an interactive map that the Housing Action Team put together that actually has drop down pins for every single VRBO, really Airbnb, and business license. It's a pretty amazing amount of work that they did, and it's very interactive, so you can zoom in on a specific neighborhood and see exactly what's going on there. But that is a good question. And frankly, I'm not sure that the data would exist for that. Like, I don't know that the county asks people when they get their business license if it's a whole home vacation rental or just a room. Maybe we could ask for clarification from the county staff on that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that would have needed to be an original use permit or something. And I don't know if might be a lot of work to comb back through that. And I don't think necessary for us to have that information to move forward. I was just curious about that. So, our 2 commissioners that were on the ad hoc had the benefit and the burden of going through all of the documentation on this previously. And so I'm just not as up to speed on this as you are. So I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. In 1B, findings 1B, you have provided the definition there for room and board, and that makes sense to me. And then under F, there's also a definition for vacation rental and short-term rental, which includes detached bedroom and guest cottage. And I'm actually a fan of, considering allowing detached bedrooms and guest cottages being available for these short-term rentals. But I wasn't clear if this resolution in its interpretation would allow that. Can you comment on that?
We could change that because we're defining that in the resolution. Since vacation rental isn't defined in the inland zoning ordinance to begin with, I think we could define it if we wanted to in a different way.
Okay, so that might be an item for further commission discussion, just because there are, you know, a number of people in Mendocino County, we probably all know one or more of them, who do have, you know, a small detached bedroom, which is not set up as a standalone residential unit, but could provide some land-based income for people and would not necessarily take away from housing stock availability. And so that's why I would like to consider that in this interpretation.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. And
I wanted to.
Oh, go ahead.
May
Dan.
I? Yeah, thank you. I think the thing to think about, Commissioner Parnell, with that is, if there's the full-time resident living there,
Yes.
right, and they meet the other requirements, right,
Yeah.
in the sense of off of a county-provided road, because I understand, you know, people need work. You know, we're not a wealthy county. It's a real mix, right? And people need to supplement their incomes, right? And I totally concur that's a way to do it without taking away a lot of housing stock, right? As long as there's, you know, full-time resident living on that property.
Yeah, so I agree also with your suggestion. I think it's a very good one. And what I would do is revise section 1 finding B to make the definition be that it includes 2 bedrooms in a house, a detached bedroom, or a guest cottage.
Right, and just to make a further distinction that we're not talking about ADUs, because ADUs are legitimate housing units, and we don't want to have those removed from long-term housing stock. But, you know, the guest cottages and detached bedrooms are, you know, they're not complete residential units.
But I think the ADUs in the county zone never got defined like we did it for the coastal zone, in that it's for long-term rents.
Yeah.
And we can do that in this.
Let me just
Okay.
finish. That's a important point to look at for the county, the general plan area. That didn't happen. And when we did the ADUs for the coastal zone, the previous commissioners were like, hey, we need to revisit that. And I remember that conversation, you know, so we need to make sure our language for ADUs matches long-term rents. Okay.
I'm in agreement with all
I
that.
just wanted to clarify for the other commissioners.
Yeah.
If I may, through the chair,
Yes, please.
Sam Vandewater, Senior Planner, just around the discussion on guest cottage. Currently, inland guest cottages are defined in a way that they can't be rented for any compensation. So they would not be able to be included as a vacation home rental. That language is not included in a detached bedroom, but the guest cottage would not be a viable option at this time.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. So maybe we just put in the detached bedroom, because again, we're not trying to rewrite code. We're just trying to reinterpret what's there. Okay. So two more things, and thank you for bearing with me. I know I have a lot to say on this, but I do think it's a super, super important issue. I would like to see this once the commission's kind of done with it, and we might need another round of discussion, but I would like to see it go before county council before we make a final decision. So I'd like to make that request. And I would leave that up to our ad hoc as to when you feel this is ready to go to county council. And then finally, a question for staff about how you see, if the commission were to adopt this resolution in its current form or some related but modified form, do you see this providing any kind of formal or informal direction to our consultants in the update of the zoning ordinance? Because I think we need to think about that if that's the case.
Vandy Vandewater, Senior Planner, I do believe that we could provide, if this were to be adopted in the future, this is information we could provide to the consultants to incorporate or consider in their revisions to the zoning code.
And if I may just add on to that, Julia Krog, Director, the ordinance, the final zoning code revisions will come back before the Planning Commission as well. So there is another, sort of bite at the apple, so to speak, for any sort of tweaks on that. I do know that the zoning code consultant has been very interested in what the ad hoc would report back out on this item to make sure they can incorporate any recommendations there. We still have not yet seen a draft of the zoning ordinance, but we expect that to be coming up in the very near future, and we'll be sharing any final resolution adopted by the Planning Commission on this with the zoning code consultants.
Okay, thank you for that. And again, my thinking on this is that, what we're going to attempt to do here with this resolution is to reinterpret antiquated language that doesn't really respond well to the modern world. But it could be that as our new zoning ordinance gets modernized, that some of the language winds up changing and that there are different categories. So I just want to make sure that there's not a sentiment that we're locking this in stone. So I would actually love to hear from the other commissioners on that point.
Yeah, to me, this is just an interpretation, like you said, of a old piece of zoning language that has been applied in kind of a weird way for some time, and that it created a tradition of application that became more and more problematic as the environment and the economy changed around vacation rentals. So I see this as a stopgap measure, frankly. And I know Diana and I are dedicated to working with the Board of Supervisors along with the Housing Action Team to come up with some language as well for the coastal zone. So that's my take on it.
Anyone else on that?
I do think that, we just want to make sure that there is no conflicting information with the zoning code updates coming, because I know that it can be slightly confusing and difficult if we're adopting anything and then the zoning changes come out and it is conflicting, and that will need to be updated too. So I think maybe making sure they're cohesive first would be more ideal before we bring forth any resolution.
Yeah, but just to be clear, I think the zoning ordinance update is going to take a long time, and we can inform that process with this resolution rather than waiting for the consultant to come with us. And I know this is a little off topic, but I was also wondering, we had asked as a commission to not see the zoning code update as a whole at one time, but to see it in pieces so we have enough time to actually review it and provide good comment. And I'm hoping that the consultant team heard that and that that's the way it's going to come forward to us.
Thank you for that question, Commissioner Jones. We actually have a meeting with the zoning code consultant on Monday, so we'll confirm that with them as well. But I do remember that direction, and I'm sure they took note of that as well too. So
awesome. It's just really hard to look at 300 pages at once and have a meeting that's meaningful about it. I mean, you need to do it in chunks. Like I'd like to do a chapter for each of our meetings, or at most 2, so that we can get through it in a good amount of time, but have enough time to sit with it and really think about unintended consequences and where it could be strengthened, et cetera. There's a lot of expertise on this commission that can help this process be a better one.
Good point. Thank you. So are there any other comments for the ad hoc or questions on this item?
So what I'd like to suggest is that I'll go ahead and make changes, Allison, per your thoughts. And then I know I can't send them to both Diana and you because that would be a violation of the Brown Act. But I'm wondering if I couldn't just send them to you since they were your concerns. Would that be okay with you, Diana, so that I'm sure I got what she wanted to be addressed before our next meeting?
I'm wondering how we could do it, how, as an ad hoc, why couldn't we send it, do that together and then send it as an ad hoc committee to, can't we do that to the whole commission?
We can't have communication with more than 3 commissioners without it being in.
We don't, we send it, but we send it to staff.
Right.
And staff sends it out.
I mean, I think most that might push it out 2 weeks, just because then we have to, do the work during our meetings. So
2 weeks.
What I'm asking,
it's not going to come on the 19th.
Well, it could. What I'm asking for, Diana, is if I could just make the revisions Allison asked for and then send them to her, make sure her issues are addressed, and then we can send it on to county council and get it on the next planning commission meeting.
If I may, I think that might be a little tight for council and staff to be able to review for 5/19. I would suggest we look at a meeting in June, but we can easily, follow up, and this is just, we can post it on the agenda. There's no public notice required other than the Brown Act compliance with the agenda publication.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you.
I get it. So if that's too soon, then the easiest thing is probably just for me to take whatever Allison has suggested. I can bring it back to Diana. We can send it to county council. We can discuss it again on the 19th. Allison can confirm that we got what she wanted, and then we can make a decision in June.
Yes,
that works.
I think that's
let's proceed that way. And I'm pretty confident that you understood my concerns on it.
Yeah, I think we got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Again, thank you, ad hoc members. This is really great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're excited that there's support on the commission for this.
There is.
Okay, wonderful. So with that, this is a question for county council. Do we need to open public comment on this issue?
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, yes.
Okay, so with that, we will open public comment. And do we have anybody waiting to comment on this issue?
We do have one person, Anne Marie Weibel.
And if you give me just one moment, I'll go ahead and share a timer here. And go ahead and state your name and begin speaking. It's taking a moment. Okay, there we go.
Hi, my name is Anne Marie Weibel. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. As one of the people who was concerned about the project next to Albion Ridge, I wanted to thank you and congratulate you. It seems that maybe to have an ad hoc committee is the way to get work done, because the whole county is having a really, really hard time with this housing issue, which affects everybody and everything. I just listened last night to the supervisors. They were being interviewed for the 5th district. There's 2 people running, and, it seems to come up with everything we deal with in this county. I want to congratulate you for this again. And I did find on the MCN, Mendocino Community Network listserv, a petition that probably came through Elizabeth Swenson through the Coastal Housing Group through HAT. And she or people in her group sent out a petition. I haven't had a chance to look at it. This might be something you want to look at as well, or you already are aware of that. I found out that in Elk, for example, there are now currently only 2 or 3 rentals. Every other property is owned by somebody and no chance to rent. Also on the AVA, there was an article by Malcolm McDonald, who said he was asked by some company in Florida because he has bare land if he wanted to sell it. I got a card in the mail telling me I had bare land, and if I wanted to sell it, it's what marijuana is not worth here very much in this county, but it's worth a lot in Florida. So there's companies coming and wanting to cash in on this opportunity. And I'm sure there's people from, other countries too, who are wanting to buy properties. So we need to save what we have. And thank you so much again for your work. Because up until now, it seemed like nobody wanted to touch the issue. The Coastal Commission helped with some housing issue, but it's because the plan that needs to be adopted is down the road, nothing happened. Thank you.
And that is all we have for public comment on this item.
Great, thank you. We will close public comment on agenda item 8A, and we will return to agenda item number 3, the director's report. Turning it over to you, Julia.
Thank you, Julia Krog, Director. I have no director's report other than to just remind the Commission that on May 19th we do have a lengthy agenda, and so just to be prepared for that. And I think that's really all that I have for you today. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for our director? None? Okay. Moving on to agenda item 4, matters from the public. This is public expression. Members of the public are welcome to address the Planning Commission on items not listed on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission is prohibited by law from taking action on matters not on the agenda. Individuals wishing to address the Planning Commission under matters from the public may do so via email, telephone, or Zoom. For information on each of these methods, call Planning and Building at 707-234-6650 or visit mendocinocounty.org/government/planning-services/meeting-agendas. All correspondence will be attached to the item and made available online on the Planning Commission agenda page. If any members of the public logged into the Zoom meeting wish to speak under public expression and you have not completed the telecomment form, please use the raise hand feature now to allow staff to add you to the meeting. Instructions for using the raise hand feature are found on the agenda of this meeting. Do we have anybody for public expression?
We do not have any raised hands, but just to confirm, if you do have an item and you're on a phone, it's *9 to raise hand. We do have one commenter.
And Anne-Marie had submitted a telecom form.
Oh, thank you.
Give me just a moment here to share my screen, and we'll start a timer here. Let me go ahead and reset. And Anna-Marie, please just begin when you're ready.
Yeah, thank you. I have a comment relating to wireless issues, and one that's kind of touching on this because it was brought up in relation to that. I'm so excited about your housing progress, and I ask, and as also commissioners ask, for the wireless guidelines to be updated. And both entities also ask for a workshop about 5G. And my third item is about rewriting the bylaws, which came up during an issue with a wireless application that the commission said they would deal with. I know since then, only 2 of the members who were on the commission then remembered that. And I have seen applications for wireless facilities coming up in April, and today will be one, and on the 17th will be one. We keep having these applications. I'm asking you to place a moratorium on these until you update the wireless guidelines, because the guidelines are from 2015. The Telecommunication Act is from 1996, is way outdated. And there was a lawsuit that was successful by the Children's Health Defense and the Environmental Health Trust that challenged that ancient act and forced the FCC to prove that this technology is safe. They have not proven that, and we know it is not safe nor healthy to be living next to such a facility. And just to remind you about the bylaws, it happened that at one of the meetings, it was just a decision made. It was in regards to Pine Mountain Power and Willits, because there weren't enough representatives on your committee available to vote. And according to the bylaws, by the way it currently is, unless it gets changed, all four commissioners need to vote the same way in order for the public to be able to appeal and for the special conditions to remain. And it was very frustrating for the group because we hired 2 lawyers and we couldn't appeal because of that. Thank you.
Stop sharing.
Are there any additional people? I believe we have no more commenters at this time.
Okay, great. So that concludes public expression. We have nothing on the consent calendar. And so we will move to agenda item 6A on our regular calendar, which is case U 2022-0017, Mendocino Forest Products Wireless Communications Facility. And with that, I will turn it over to staff.
Commissioner Parnell, I just need to leave the meeting now. So
okay. Thank you for joining us when you can, and we'll just
and I'll see you on the 19th.
Meeting minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so turning it over to staff for a staff report.
Okay, thank you. Mark Kleiser, Planner 2. I'm planner for this project. What we have today is a coastal development use permit number U2021-0017 to authorize construction and operation of a wireless communication facility. I'd like to address the memo that was sent out to the commission yesterday first. Staff inadvertently referred to the tower as 67 feet. It is actually 72 feet. The additional 5 feet is faux foliage on top of the monopine. Staff has reviewed the staff report, the initial study and resolution, and finds that the additional increase due to this faux foliage does not change the findings for the project, nor staff's determination that the project impacts can be mitigated and brought below less than significant. So with that said, we have a 72-foot tower being proposed. In addition to the 72-foot tower, the project also proposes various appurtenant equipment and ground equipment, including a 30-kilowatt generator, a 190-gallon fuel storage tank, and equipment cabinet. The proposed monopine will be located within an 1,800-square-foot fenced compound. The tower will have the capacity to accommodate 2 additional carriers, and it will also feature FirstNet for emergency responders. The project is in conformance with all aspects of Mendocino County's wireless facilities guidelines, which was adopted by the Board of Supervisors in August of 2015. Regarding the project site itself, it is located approximately 1.3 miles east of Casper and approximately 4 miles south of Fort Bragg. The subject parcel is owned by Mendocino Forest Products, which still maintains an office on site, and it is a working office. The parcel is clear of forest. Several trees on adjacent parcels, approximately 250 feet in height, will help stealth the monopine tower. No significant vegetation will be removed to accommodate this proposed project. Conditions of approval have been included that address when the vegetation removal can occur in order to mitigate any biological impacts. The applicant did consider several other locations for the project, but ultimately chose this one as it offered the greater distance from adjacent residences, and it's also located approximately 40 feet higher than the other options, which offers greater coverage. The memo that was sent to the commission yesterday also includes a coverage map. It does not include the number of residences that will receive service from the tower, though there are a number of parcels located in there. Staff does not have that number at this time. Staff did visit the site in November of 2021 and found it to be well maintained. It was clear of vegetation. No potentially significant impacts were identified in the writing of the initial study. Staff recommends adoption of a mitigated negative declaration. Mitigation measures for biological resources have been included as conditions of approval, which will ensure any impacts be brought to less than significant. And these include ground disturbing activities during avian breeding season, surveys regarding amphibian habitats, and pre-construction surveys regarding bat species to identify a roosting, maternity, and hibernation site. Staff recommends approval of the project and adoption of the mitigated negative declaration. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for including those coverage maps. I know the commission likes to see those. It helps fill out the picture for us. Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff? Commissioner Jones?
Yes, I have a few things. First, I wanted to let everybody know that my personal residence is within 4,000 feet of the property location, and I believe that's outside of the limitation for conflict of interest. But I wanted to just get confirmation from our council.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Godrowski, I may want some time to just double check those issues, not having heard of this until now.
Yeah, my understanding is that you have to be within 300 feet of adjoining parcel. There's two parcels that are between mine and this parcel, and it is 4,000 feet away. But that was the city's standards when I was the community development director, and I don't know if the county has different standards or not.
I would be going to the FPPC regulations to confirm that. So that is a decision of each commissioner, and I can't opine on that directly off the cuff.
Okay, that's fine. Well, I'm pretty sure it's outside the limit of having an issue on it. So I had a couple of questions. One is, in this industrial zoning district, there's a height limit of 50 feet. And so I'm just noticing that I see this a bit in staff reports that we get. The actual analysis doesn't include a look at development regulations and how they relate to the project. So specifically setback limits, height limits, floor area ratio, lot coverage. And I would like to encourage the staff to include these in the staff report, because if for no other reason, it makes sure that you look at it yourself, and it gives us confidence that it has been reviewed. Now, in my reading of it, it's section 20.400.35. It says building height limits for industrial districts is 50 feet. I can see that you might consider this not a building, but in general, height limits apply to everything within a zoning district. So I just wanted to get clarification on that issue.
Thank you. Mark Kleiser, planner for the project. The height limit for wireless facilities is covered in the wireless facilities guidelines. There are height exceptions for facilities such as this. And that's in chapter 20.444.
Okay, and did you confirm that this is less than those height limits? You did, okay.
And it's also conforms to the setbacks for wireless facilities, which are also greater than that for each individual zone.
Okay, maybe just because I'm new to the county, it would be super if you guys could just include a table so that we could track it and know that it's been looked at and I don't need to worry about it and look it up myself. So that was one thing. And then the other question that I had is in the mitigated neg deck, you looked at wetlands and indicated that the project was not going to result in disturbance of wetlands. My understanding in the coastal zone is you have to have a 100-foot buffer in addition to the wetlands to ensure that there's no disturbance within the buffer. That wasn't analyzed. I'm assuming that you looked at that, but I just want to make sure.
If I may, through the chair, Vandy Vandewater, senior planner, or actually, I think Mark has. Did you have the answer?
No, go ahead.
Oh, so for actually, sorry, Julie, do you mind taking this one? I just lost my train of thought.
Sure, no problem. If you, so the question was about the wetlands and the distance from it. So I see in the staff report, it talks about that there's a freshwater emergent wetland approximately 200 feet to the east, and then a riverine area approximately 600 feet north, and then a freshwater pond approximately 200 feet north. So with all of that, it is compliant with the 100-foot buffer standards for within the coastal zone.
Yeah, I just didn't know how big the site was, so I wasn't sure. And then that last question I have is the site plan shows the antenna being located right next to an existing tree. I was wondering if that existing tree is going to be retained or not.
I believe that tree will be retained, but I'm going to let the applicant speak to the vegetation removal that needs to occur for the project.
That's all my questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Anything from you, Commissioner Pollan?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Babini?
It's this time.
Okay. And I just had one question for staff, and that was seeing that we have adjacent properties zoned rural residential. Have staff received any communication at any point from either owners or residents of those RR properties?
No, not from the properties adjacent to the project.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we will invite the applicant to give a presentation.
All right, it looks like we have two folks in the waiting room here.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Karen Leonard, and I'm representing AT&T. Mark did a very good job giving the background and the details on the project. This site will be filling a significant coverage gap that we have in the area south of Fort Bragg and into Casper. It'll be providing coverage for residents as well as visitors and public safety services. The gap along Highway 1 right now is approximately 2.5 miles. So, that'll really fill in along the coast there. In addition to the added coverage for our customers, this will also be a FirstNet site, which provides dedicated communication channels to all first responders in the area. We believe this is an appropriate location. It will be well screened. It will not be visible from Highway 1. And specifically in response to the question about tree removal, there will be no tree removal. We've read all the conditions of approval and we concur with all of those, and I'm happy to answer any questions about the project.
Thank you, Karen. Questions from the commissioners? No? Commissioner Jones, anything from you? No? I did have one question for you, Karen, regarding FirstNet. Am I correct that FirstNet is a subscription service?
I'm going to let Donna Davis respond to that. She's our external affairs with our external affairs team and has more information specifically on FirstNet.
Good morning, commissioners. This is Donna Davis, AT&T External Affairs. Yes, Commissioner Pernell, you are correct. FirstNet is a subscription-based service. So this would provide service to FirstNet responders that are on the FirstNet network. Not limited to local, but also, as we mentioned on previous commission hearings, that does include any mutual aid responders that would come to the area in response to a fire per se. So if you've got some fire squads from down in Southern California that are FirstNet subscribers, this is going to also support them during incidents in this
Great,
area.
thank you for that. And do you happen to know if we have any in-county subscribers?
I believe you do. Let me go check that for you. Okay.
Thanks.
Sure.
I would like to make just one observation, and that is that I am on a listserv in our community, and there was a fair amount of, I don't know, emails back and forth about this tower. I don't know how many were opposed to it, but a fair number. I just don't think they were necessarily notified or aware that it was coming to the Planning Commission. So I can't say more than that because I didn't actually read very many of the emails. I just kind of saw them fly by. Anyway, in case you're curious.
Well, this might be a good time for staff to speak to that issue.
Mark Kleiser, planner for the project. Staff received one public comment, and that was this morning. We have not received any via mail or email that I am aware of, other than the one.
Correct, just the Anne Marie Weibel I posted.
Okay.
And do you know where this was noticed? You know, which publication it was noticed in?
It would have been noticed in the Fort Bragg Advocate, and then also with physical notices mailed to all property owners within 1,000 feet of the property boundaries.
Thank you. Donna, just checking back in with you about how long it might take to get that info.
Thank you, Commissioner Purnell. Yes, I do show that we have subscribers in Mendocino County.
Okay, great. I've always wondered about that, so thank you for checking.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there are no other questions for the applicant, at this point we will open the public hearing on this issue. And do we have anybody joining us this morning to speak from the public?
If anyone is on the phone and would like to comment, please use the *9 feature to raise hand.
And we did receive telecomment from Anne Marie Weibel again.
You can go ahead and bring Anna Marie over. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Hi. I heard that we don't have a number of residents available that would be serviced, and based on those grounds, I ask you not to make this decision today. Also based on the fact that I also noticed that there was a lot of communication about this when people first got wind of it, but must have not seen it just now, or don't get the newspaper, don't read the newspaper. Newspapers are kind of not the best way to communicate with people anymore, it seems. So my other point is in my email to you, which I sent last night, and I don't know if any of you read it, I also talked about these towers being obsolete. We have a minimum of 441,000 roughly low Earth orbit satellites operating, approved, and proposed. We have cell towers on the ocean floor. We have more and more people suffering from radiation poisoning, and more animals and plants are affected. If all the bees are dying, we won't survive. And that's why this urgency that we really look at this seriously and quickly. I looked at the 650 feet to the next residences. I used to live there for 5 years, almost next door. And so I'm very familiar with this site. That would translate to 200 meters. Based on a study in Brazil, they listed 5,000 deaths within 2 meters of a facility like this. We can't afford this. The plan talks about 4-foot microwave dishes, 2 of them in the future, and the 24 RRUs. This will be 5G. Also with FirstNet, it will be 5G. I would have a lot more comments that I can't list in the few seconds left. I'm very concerned about nature because of all the lakes and the riverines and the ocean and the forest and the birds and the plant and the frogs and the bats and it really, and also about the trenching. With another tower, we all of a sudden had poles and there was no mention about trenching. I don't know if you advertised it on the site.
Thank you. The 3 minutes is up.
Thank you, Anne Marie. And Vandy, do we have anyone else wishing to speak that you're able to see?
Let me just check again. It's *9 to raise hand. No, we're not seeing any additional commenters at this time.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we will close the public hearing and bring this item back to the commission. Are we ready for a motion? Okay, not hearing from the commissioners, I would invite a motion.
I make a motion to adopt a resolution of the Planning Commission, County of Mendocino, State of California, adopting a mitigated negative declaration and granting a coastal development use permit for that was amended. How tall is it? Sorry, because in the resolution it says the 67 feet.
72 feet.
Thank you. 72-foot tall wireless communications tower.
And do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Great, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Jones?
I'm going to abstain if I can.
We may need to check with county council if that's based on the recusal of the project or not. We'll come back to that if Matt.
And then if I may, I just would like to confirm with the maker of the motion and the second as well that they're also including the revision to condition of approval 1 to ensure it's that 72-foot height that was included in the memorandum. For today.
Yes, and that's why I think in the resolution I changed the 67, or should I state that it is including the amendment to the height change in the
No,
memorandum?
I think you're sufficient. I just wanted to make sure we had it clear on the record. Thank you.
Yes.
And the second, I'm also clear on that.
Thank you.
So Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, I'm not aware, Commissioner Jones has sat through the hearing. I'm not aware that she has a conflict, and she has stated that she does not believe she has one. As abstention wouldn't, at this point, affect anything regarding the vote. So I'm not sure it's required. I'm not sure that she can.
All right, Commissioner Babini?
Yes.
Commissioner Pollan?
Yes.
Chair Pano?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-1 with abstention.
3-0 with an abstention.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you all. We have nothing for agenda item 9, approval of minutes. And so if I'm not mistaken, we are on our final item, which is adjournment, and I'm looking for that motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Day.
Thanks, Tyler.
Thank you. Bye.